Welcome to the Road to Blake Street Banter. You'll hear later that I messed that up with our two interviews, but we are here, Road to Blake Street Banter. Tyler, what up, big dog?
I don't know if this is really happening. Like, 5 trades this year. I don't know what's real anymore. But we're gonna roll with it.
I, it was a wild, wild day. And like I was so frustrated over the weekend. I kept refreshing the stupid X app. I'm not doing it. Tweet the Twitter app.
No, it's Twitter.
I'm calling it Twitter. Dude, man, changed the retweet to a repost today, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? But besides that, I kept refreshing it over the weekend. I was just like, okay, what's happening? Why aren't any of the things happening? Rockies have all these guys; they should be moved. Blah blah blah. But in typical trade deadline fashion, as sellers usually go, like I don't think I was ready for that 20 last 8 hours, that last 12 hours of deadline moves, and the Rockies came in hot. You did a great, fantastic job covering it on the BSB Twitter. We'll have some articles. I know Lewis is getting something with the trade values, giving you a different outlook. Trade values website. There, released an article the other day with the Angels trade. We have coverage today with an Angels head guy about the minor leagues. We talked to a Braves guy about the minor league guys that we got. So we're giving you as much content we possibly can going with it. But Tyler, you absolutely killed it on this trade deadline. Did it take you back to 2 weeks ago with the draft?
Yeah, this was my second draft, pretty much.
Yeah.
I wish that some of the guys, like, I had such a fun time with the Angels trade because both those guys were drafted. Jake Madden last year and then Mason Albright in 2021. So it was a lot of fresh data that is able to be picked through. Those are the ones I was actually able to like provide some serious insight into. The Braves guys, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I think I figured some things out, but just overall, so much fun. And then, I think we should kick it off with the one buying move. The
Yeah.
Rockies added Justin Brule from the Dodgers. He was recently designated for assignment. I think the Dodgers were trying to make a roster spot. The Rockies sent cash, probably not much money. So don't be like, oh, they sent $1 million. It was probably like a few $1,000 or something like that, just to get priority on this guy. He's a lefty. He is high 80s with a cutter and a sinker. Those are kind of fringy pitches. Neither is great. His slider, though, is really, really solid. So he fits that Rockies mold. Sinker, cutter, slider. He got option to AAA, but expect him to be that Brad Hand fill-in at some point very soon, probably in the next week or two. The Rockies bullpen is taxed. So
Yeah.
adding a guy like Brule was a really smart move. Get some decent MLB level pitching.
Yeah, that was a interesting move. I know you and Nick were pretty high on Brule. I can't say I've ever heard of the name, so it'll be good to have that lefty arm, and he's controllable. I think that was kind of he's pre-arb for the next 2 years, so we can work
Yeah.
something out if he does fit in and moving forward. Not sure how this whole option thing works. We were talking about that in the DMs, so I think he has one more major league option this year, where we'd have to DFA him or he'd have to stick with the major league squad. But that would be the end of it. And then I think, right, and then maybe next year he might be able to be optioned.
Well, yeah. So you get the three option years. I mean, the terminology should change. There's 3 years where you get an option, and then within each year you can option it. They should just make a new term for that.
Yeah.
You can just send a guy down up to 5 times a year. So it sounds like Brule's been sent down 4 times, and then came to the Rockies. They optioned him again. I'm thinking he can be brought up and sent down one more time, but perhaps the reason he's in AAA right now is because they want to hold him there until they know they can hang on to him for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So probably what's going on there. Obviously not a big move, but just a guy that can kind of fill the back of the depth chart. So not as flashy as like a Randall Grichuk, CJ Cron trade to the Los Angeles Angels. That was fire.
Yeah, that was the big one. So me and Noah were talking live on Sunday night when that trade went through, and we got it right on time. It was pretty cool, pretty fun stuff that we were able to dive into. And we got I always forget Jake Madden and Mason Albright in return, who I'm pretty big on both of them. I like both of them after talking to Jared from the Angels, talking Halos guy. It's just two diverse pitchers going into that. Again, we talked about it last week, so won't spend too much of your listening time diving into much of that. But Tyler's here; he's our expert, as so makes Skylar happy. That guy was mean to me. He was mean to me the other day, Tyler. But what are you excited about Mason and Jake going forward?
I
And
mean,
how do you
Jake
feel about
is.
the draft altogether, or that trade altogether?
I think that trade that was the to me an A+ trade because
A
you
plus.
do
Okay.
get two legitimately high upside, high-ish floor in the case of Mason Albright, but both have a ton of upside. Just the profile itself is quality. Madden potentially going to sit 98 in the future. He's rail thin right now. Already throws mid 90s. Albright is kind of we mentioned it with Jared, kind of a spoiler. There are some shades of Kyle Freeland. Obviously, there's a lot more complexity to it than that, but some similarities there. And I think that, for him to end up as a back end starter, both guys could easily end up back end starters. Jake Madden could end up top of the rotation if all goes well. Mason Albright, though, looks like a potential back end starter. I think these were easily the two best prospects the Rockies got. I'm biased towards the starters.
Yeah.
Victor Vodnik came back for Pierce Johnson. He's probably the most likely to contribute to a big league team, but I'm someone who I am biased towards the starters. A lot more potential impact there. But segueing now into that Pierce Johnson trade, they got sent Pierce Johnson for Victor Vodnik and Tanner Gordon from the Braves. We just talked to Garrett Spain from the Braves BS or what it,
SB.
SB Nation
Uh,
website and got some insight there. So that's coming up. That trade, not stoked about it, but again, Victor Vodnik is a very likely big league arm. So I think for that reason, that trade is also like an A- trade. No, not even A-. It was Pierce Johnson, and they got two pretty quality arms. So I'll throw an A on that trade as well. Those are definitely the two that carried the week for us.
yeah.
I don't know if you favored one of those over the other. I think some people might like that Braves trade more than the Angels one.
I
The Angels one got a lot of flack on Twitter, so I'll leave the door open for people to like the Braves one more.
Yeah, I think I do like the Braves one a little bit more. Just because it seems like we got Vodnik plus Gordon for Pierce Johnson. Like it's the more I talk to somebody and look into it, Victor Vodnik is that guy, and getting that for Pierce Johnson would have been nice. But then being able to add a possible back end relief pitcher in Gordon is a nice little caveat. The Gritchick Crone I don't give so high just because I packaging them together. I'm still a little salty about, but I even when I say that I know that Crone's value wasn't as high, and so like I don't know why I'm still hanging up on that, especially when you get a Madden and an Albright. I think with the Albright piece, it's we already have two of them, and it feels like in Sean Sullivan, Carson Prosecki going up to Kyle Freeland, that crafty lefty seems very similar arsenals to those two guys. So like we already have two of those guys. We don't quite know who they are, but we're adding this into it. So just in that sense, I'm a little down on that. I think that's why I'm giving the Braves one a B plus, and then the Angels one a B. It's very hard for me to give an A. Just the teacher in me, it's just not going to do it. But all in all, I like the fact that the Rockies seem to have a plan, like you kind of alluded to in those conversations. Pitching, diversity pitching all the way through. You mentioned it. There was one more trade. We'll touch base on it real quick. It wasn't too much with it. What was it? It was
Brad Hand.
Brad Hand for Alec Barger. Not a lot about Alec Barger. Just he's 25-year-old relief prospect. So all the data from when he was being drafted wasn't quite there. Throws a lot of strikes, big strikeouts, but comes with big walks with that. Just could see him as a major leaguer in the next year or so as a relief pitcher coming in, just throwing strikes in that. Just not a lot to go on, so we're going to be watching him as we go forward. But I want you to allude to it because we're kind of on a time crunch and we got some other content coming up. The Rule 5 draft that you kind of spoke of. Like, there's a lot of names next year that we kind of have to be worried about, and some of those names are the guys that we acquired this trade deadline.
Yeah, and that's why people really clamor for the give me the big league ready guy, give me the big league ready guy. But those guys have to be added to the Rule 5 or to the 40-man roster, otherwise be exposed to the Rule 5 draft. You look at Tanner Gordon, Victor Vodnik, Alec Barger, Connor Van Scoyoc. then there's guys that are actually in the system already. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure this is the year Adael Amador and Yanquiel Fernandez both are going to be Rule 5 eligible. I mean, without a doubt, those two will be added to the 40-man roster. But then you have your 2020 college guys, Chris McMahon, Sam Weatherly. Those are both really high-quality arms. Teams might, especially in the case of Weatherly, be like, hey, we could try to work with this guy to become a power left-handed reliever. Chris McMahon, hey, maybe this guy's a fifth starter if we can make some tweaks. So you probably have to add those guys if you're, wanting to keep them. Willie McIver is in the mix. There's a lot of guys to add to the 40-man, and I think there's a little bit of a crunch. There's going to be some free agents, of course, that are going to open up spots. But I think, and that's why I was also glad with the Madden Albright moves, because those guys, Madden's not going to be Rule 5 eligible for like 2 or 3 more years. And then Albright, same deal. They're on the same timeline since Madden was a college guy, Albright a high school guy. The high school guys get an extra year before being Rule 5 eligible. So those guys, I think it's 2025, they will be eligible for the Rule 5. So you have some time there at least. But yeah, so be on the lookout for that 40-man crunch, and we're going to spend a little bit more time in the future kind of diving into that, be a little more sure of who all is on that candidate list, and kind of give our thoughts on who is going to get added. Got some insight from Garrett Spain that the Braves guy did not necessarily expect Tanner Gordon or Alec Barger to get added, but if the Rockies traded for these guys, I don't think they would want to trade for guys who would be vulnerable to the Rule 5 draft if they didn't have a plan to add them. I think they'll probably add one of them. But again, we will see as the year goes on. Their performance right now is going to matter.
Yeah, and I believe all three of the Braves guys are in Hartford. I don't know quite sure. I'm not sure where Alec Barger went.
I think he was assigned there, yeah.
Yeah, and then Mason Albright and Jake Madden are Grizzlies, and Ben Skoyak, as you all know, is a Hartford Yard Goat already. Mason Albright is pitching yesterday. I think I'm releasing this. That's on Thursday, so weird time loop there. But so Mason Albright, you should get some numbers, get his first appearance, and seeing that. And I'm sure you saw it on the BSB Twitter as I clip it yesterday for you. That's weird. Yeah, the other thing I want to point out, I know I keep talking and it's just what it is, but you mentioned again on the deadline BSB coverage how the Rockies kind of have this timeline in these trades. So like you got Alec Barger, Tanner Gordon, Vodnik, and a little bit older. Then you got Jake Madden and Mason Albright a little bit younger to kind of meet these different like timelines. Like Vodnik, the Braves guys seem to be hitting next year or two. And then the Angels guys are going to be in next 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 going forward. So I think that was really cool how the Rockies, I hope they planned on that. There's no way they didn't plan that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I felt like after seeing the Brett Hand trade yesterday, I was a little bit like, you could have gotten a guy with a little more upside in the lower minors that just can hang out for a little bit extra time. But I think they want to have depth for 2025. I think that's when they're eyeing. Next year, they're probably going to want to be a 70, 75 win team. And then they're looking towards 2025 as like, maybe we can break 500 and who knows from there. So I think they did want to add as much depth as possible so that it's like, hey, we can throw Tanner Gordon as a spot starter. We can throw Alec Barger and Victor Vodnik as, bullpen guys in 20. I mean, Vodnik sooner, but those guys will be depth in 2025. Whereas Madden Albright, they're your hopefuls that maybe they touch the big leagues in 25 or 26, probably more 26. So I do like that the dispersion of those guys all around fits well with what we've currently got. We are pretty strong in the lower minors, and then the upper minors right now. A lot of relievers, but not as much from a starting perspective. So overall, they've hammered the depth down pretty nicely.
Yeah, feeling really good about where the Rockies are right now going forward. Let's just see how it plays out over the next few years. So that'll be our quick draft coverage for today. Keep listening. Right now, you're going to hear Garrett Spain of the Atlanta Braves SB Nation Battery. I forget the exact website, but he's talked to us about the 3 Braves guys and a little bit more about the Braves just being a successful franchise, which is always fun to talk about because we don't really get to do that right now. And the Angels guy, Jared Timms, talking Halos. He will finish up this pod for about 15, 20 minutes talking Angels and those 3 prospects we got back from them. And as always, we're trying to give you the best coverage that we possibly can. Keep following us, BSB, on the Twitter. Our Instagram clips are fun. I think I got it down, Tyler. I think I figured it out. So our Instagram's growing. It's always fun over there. And our YouTube is always there too. So keep sharing the word, keep selling the word. And as always, go Rocks and the minor league affiliates.